Domino SMK.
Protonic Shadow.
And I'm Pheracus.
Yeah, and today we're talking about our Devil May Cry Dante. In terms of the upcoming Sony Santa Monica patch, and they've said that they're going to be listening to feedback and official forums, so, I figured that doing these podcasts is a good way of getting more information out there to you guys in an actual form of in an actual medium. Put these on YouTube or where possible, and just basically just spread the word. So, going off of that, Protonic.
So, Pheracus, where does Dante stand currently in the tier list and matchup-wise? Any matchups that are notable?
Yeah, absolutely. Dante right now, he's sitting somewhere at the bottom of high tier. Some people say that, he's in between high tier and mid tier. It's been my personal experience that some of those matchups are a little easier than people sort of paint them out to be, but the typical experience is that he's going to be bottom of high tier. Now, in terms of matchups that he has difficulty with, any character that has a landmine and can camp that mine successfully, like Sackboy, and characters like Evil Cole who have an oil spike, or like his oil spike, it catches Dante's Angel Dash if he tries to go over it. So anybody who has a very strong camping presence would be able to hold Dante out by creating a wall of projectiles that, he'll have a lot of difficulty getting in on, and once he does get in, he has to deal with the mine before he could even think about landing a confirmed hit on the ground where he really shines.
What's a typical Dante game plan, for instance? Is it, as you've just stated, typically just get in on your opponent and begin to mix them up? Or for the most part, it's generally that, but with a few exceptions, it has to change a bit?
Right. So currently, the way that Dante plays, he's a very linear character. Some people, have difficulty seeing how linear he is, but all of his attacks are going to come at you from a straight forward direction. He doesn't have any angles to play, with the exception of his arbiter. However, before it can really move forward, it has to go down towards the ground, and then it moves forward. So that attack as well is pretty linear. His game plan is going to be to sort of read his opponent's movements and tendencies, because he has such a long range to his jab, and when you include the distance that he can cover with his Angel Dash, Dante can punish you from distances that you wouldn't expect or that you wouldn't think possible. And so his game plan should be focused on bypassing or dodging with air dodges the opponent's wall of projectiles and getting in on them to sort of land that jab, punish the landing lag, or punish any recovery on an attack.
Pheracus, what changes or tweaks to certain moves do you have in mind? Like, let's go in order from, let's start with his square moves, for instance.
Okay, so for his square moves, really and truly, where Dante stands right now, he's pretty good. He doesn't need too much in terms of buffs for his ground attacks. To be honest with you, I would actually prefer to nerf one of his square moves, and that would be his neutral square.
The jab, correct?
Yeah, right. Really and truly, this is sort of to assist with the netcode, because what I've noticed when playing people is because I time the landing lag really well, or recovery from an attack really well, and I would neutral jab them, and I would catch them in a string, and they would comment that they were in the air at that time, and the sort of netcode reset them back down into my attack. So in order to hopefully bypass this, I would nerf his neutral jab by adding an additional 2 to 3 frames on it, and hopefully those 2 to 3 frames would give the netcode enough time to really register that this person was in the air at time of execution, and I would catch them with an air combo as opposed to a grounded combo, or having them teleport back down into my attack.
The one thing I'm iffy about that is, I don't know if whether or not bouncing around the netcode is necessarily healthy for the character. I mean, I understand your feelings about it, but at the same time, the netcode kind of is its own special snowflake, in a way. Would this 2-frame startup be noticeable offline as well?
No, it wouldn't. Honestly, I mean, 2 frames go by like that. It's almost it's half the time that you have to catch somebody's landing lag. And if you play a character like Dante, you know that that's not a very large window at all. You have to be extremely precise. So really, it's not a large price that a Dante player would have to pay for a fair game and just better overall gameplay and a better online experience for everybody. Because it really sucks as a player to have somebody sort of downgrade, your potential skill or, a good read and say, hey, I was in the air at this time, and, it sounds like an excuse, but it sucks. For his neutral jab, I would add an additional 2 frames of startup for it, 2 to 3 frames, because it seems to be an attack that a lot of people have difficulty with, and it really puts Dante up there on the punishment scale. I think adding those 2 to 3 frames would really sort of help to balance things out.
Just curious, would you do anything about the frames on recovery? Like, would you leave his recovery window the same, or would you adjust it, make it bigger or smaller?
I would leave his recovery window the same. I think he has the right amount of recovery for the amount of risk that he has as a character.
So that was the jab, alright. Any other of his square moves, like, his aerial squares, for instance?
Yes, actually. One of the things for his aerial squares, if you do, let's say, his aerial neutral square, he ends up in a situation where he stone falls. So after using an aerial attack, he has nowhere to go but down. And in, let's say, a free-for-all or a 2 versus 2, that makes you very predictable, and it also limits your options in terms of how you can deal with opponents who are air campers, right, or prefer to be in the air. And it really is a limitation for him as a melee character, especially seeing how linear his playstyle is. So what I would do for both his neutral square and his air forward square is I'd allow him the ability to jump cancel that after the first attack. If he does a second attack or inputs anything else, then he's committed to the move and he should stonefall. But if, let's say, you do a first swing and you realize that, you've compromised yourself, you're not in a good position, you should be able to jump cancel that and sort of, get to safety.
I mean, it's basically how it is now, right? If he does even a single swipe, he just falls completely, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. I can see this one being very workable. Like, it would help him against the characters who like to flee a lot, like Sackboy, for instance. This character jumped at me, he dodged, shoot. Now at least I can jump backwards and try to catch him again, or I can just keep moving forward to reset the positioning or something.
Exactly.
Okay, is there any other of his square moves that need that you feel need adjustment?
Now, the only other one that I would talk about, those are sort of off of the Angel Dash, so I'm not sure if it should be part of the Angel Dash segment.
We can save the Angel Dash segment for the very end, for like after this whole part.
Okay, so these are moves that come after the Angel Dash, so although they are square attacks, the Angel Dash has to be there for it to happen.
So, Pheracus, do you think any of his triangles need work? Like down triangle, anyone's in the air?
When I first started playing Dante, I was under the impression that his triangle set was kind of wasted because I felt like all of the moves were the same and they didn't really offer much utility. However, from experience, now I feel like they are at a good place. The only thing I would say is his neutral triangle should have a little more range on it so that he has the ability to poke at opponents better. Really and truly, the guns, they don't, provide much of a threat because they don't cause a twitch reaction, and they do kind of have a bit of a slowdown effect from time to time, but it's nothing serious that anybody really worries about. People just kind of ignore his guns. And seeing that they are more utilized as a transitional tool into his other tools kit, right? It's more like a canceling tool, so that he can cancel into his circle moves than anything else. So I think that they're good where they are. They just need a little bit more range. And, another thing that I thought about, but it may be sort of iffy, is if a character, let's say, drops a mine and they're out of range of my guns, it would be nice if my guns would be able to track the mine instead so that I can neutral shot them, get it out of the way, instead of, using a square attack and then canceling, into my guns after that, because it really doesn't give me much option in terms of how I can deal with these mines, as opposed to the air arbiter. So that's something that I thought about as well, but I mean, I could go both ways on something like that.
I feel like here he can deal with mines all right, better, like at least better than average than other characters. I mean, since he does have aerial, like, he can do the little aerial twirly gun where he can shoot at the floor, and how usually that destroys the mine, but of course sometimes netcode doesn't register, but
that's a netcode thing.
Yeah, it's a netcode thing, but like he does have the potential to blow up the mines with his bullets, and and then just kind of dash on out of there after that. So I feel like he has 2, maybe potentially 3 good ways, depending on what mine it is that he can hop in and counter the mine. So I don't know. I feel like giving him yet another extra way to get rid of mines might be just a little too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense, and it's understandable. Of course, there are weaknesses with using the down triangle, and I never see people punish this. When he does his down triangle in the air, he's committed to a downward trajectory, an easy air combo. It's easy for you to set up an air combo off of that, and the only option he has is to either counter or Angel Dash. Those are the only 2 things that he can do before he can input anything else. So really, he's kind of open to attack, right? Mm-hmm. And it does take a while before the bullets sort of, how they spread open and then they come towards the center. So he has to at least commit to the bullets coming down towards the center unless he's attacking the mine from an angle. right? But he's always going to leave himself open. So if you have a strong aerial game, that would be a time to sort of strike at a Dante player. But I mean, I could agree. Like I said, I could have gone both ways with that. I don't think that it's necessary, but it would have been a nice mechanic to see, and it could kind of tip him over the edge in terms of tier list. So
this one, we might just chalk that one up to Sony Santa Monica and just see what their judgment is. Since, like you said, it can go either way.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you feel like the guns and their purpose, they serve well. Let me ask you a question. Do you feel like the gun should have an AP limit in total per combo? Like, for instance, like his gun should only, like, in one whole combo string, his gun should only be able to total out to giving out a total of maybe 25 to 30 AP total?
I think that that's going to be very difficult to do. That's going to require additional coding, right? Honestly, I really don't see that serving much purpose, because although the guns do help to mitigate damage, they help to augment damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
For, let's say a kill confirm, if he has... Right now, he has a touch of death, and he has to utilize his guns to do that. I mean, there are other ways, but we'll just talk about the basics.
Right.
He has to use his guns to do that. But more often than not, you'll end up in a situation where you're either close to a full bar or you're halfway to a full bar. So even if it only generated 25 AP, I don't really see it preventing him from being able to, sort of empty cancel loop somebody into a level 1. It would be a limitation, but personally, I don't think that it would be necessary, and it's not really going to do much.
I was just curious, since, it's part of his guns are part of his guns, and that's essentially, for the most part, 80% of the time where they're mostly used in.
Yeah, it's that empty cancel loop. Because
okay.
If you look at them, they don't do anything else. I mean, why would you even be afraid of a Dante player who's spamming his guns? Like, you really shouldn't. Just slap him in the face as he's there shooting his guns at you that don't do any damage.
Walk through Ebony.
Jesus.
Just walk through Ebony and Ivory, no fear. Okay.
Pretty damn bad.
Let's go into his circle moves. I know the arbiter is one of these moves. Is there anything you would do to his arbiter, whether on the ground or in the air, or just overall?
Right. So something that some people might not know: the grounded version of his arbiter actually goes further in terms of distance than the aerial version, because it doesn't have to worry about going from the air to the ground and then continuing forward. Right? Mm-hmm. And it also has long startup, long recovery, and cannot be comboed into. So if I use a grounded arbiter, I'm going to hit you with an attack that I can't follow up on. So right now, it's sort of a move in his toolkit that I see as useless, right? Because Dante is a combo character. So what I would like to see is, at the very least, allow his grounded arbiter to have less recovery so that he can follow it up with an angel dash if he spaced it properly. You understand what I'm saying?
What would the leniency for this be? Like, for instance, I mean, I understand that it's a very high risk move on the ground. So do you basically feel like for a very high risk on the ground, it should have at least a medium to high reward?
Right. I would say medium reward. Not necessarily an AP burst, but I mean, I'm sure people will find ways to do an AP burst off of it with Dante. But yeah, medium reward would be perfect.
Okay. And for the air, do you feel like it should have that same property as well, or for the air it'd just be something different?
For the air, to be honest with you, I feel like it needs to have a longer startup time, and it needs to have longer recovery on it as well when Dante players hit the ground. This is one of the nerfs that I'm looking at for Dante, because currently the Dante meta is sort of being held back by sort of angel dashing and throwing out arbiters. And so what this will do, nerfing this attack, is it would sort of open up the other avenues that Dante can play. And also, this nerf it's sort of a three-part nerf, because if you do nerf the startup as well as the recovery of the air arbiter, you're going to be removing one of his frame traps, and you're also going to be removing one of his level 1 situational kill confirms off of a wall, which I think is an okay price to pay so long as Dante as a character is evolving. So what I think to sort of mitigate that, because against players like Drake or Isaac who, sort of have gun loops, or not gun loops, but, they shoot a stream of bullets. If I were to use my Air Arbiter and it were to connect with any one of their bullets, that one bullet would destroy the Arbiter, and I think that that's a little ridiculous, right? So to sort of help offset the nerf to the Air Arbiter, I'd like to at least give it some durability, or give it the same property as the bullets so that it can pass through the bullets and sort of trade. Do you understand what I mean?
Of course. For instance, like Drake's AK when he runs into Isaac's plasma cutter shots, the plasma, basically the bullets don't, Drake's bullets don't eat his bullets and vice versa. Drake just runs into the bullets while Isaac risks running into Drake's bullets.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because as it stands, I mean, a Drake could be doing a run and gun, and I would have a good read, I would air arbiter him, and then I would get punished for it, and that doesn't make any sense.
Right, I can see that. Let's see, his other circle moves. Okay, so basically you feel comfortable, if his arbiter were tweaked in this way, you'd feel comfortable with it, correct?
Yes, there's actually one more thing that I was considering. I'm not sure how hard it would be to implement. Currently, Dante, it's not a glitch, it's just the way that the hitboxes work with certain characters. Mm-hmm. When he hits them with the air arbiter, certain characters will sort of recover in the air at different points in time than other characters. And let's say against a fat princess, if I were to hit her with an air arbiter, there's no way for me to follow up with a neutral square to, let's say, set her into a combo or anything like that. My only option would be to, angel dash under her, use a shredder, which is up circle, and then follow up with, a mini combo if I can happen to catch her in the air, if she doesn't recover first. So what I thought about was sort of normalizing the reaction of the air arbiter. So if it hits you on the ground, what it does is it will pop you up and it will kind of just drop you directly onto the ground, right? Similar to, Raiden's tumble, right? When players get hit with his up triangle, how they would just kind of tumble and they would land on the ground.
Right.
So if it had that property, what it would do is it would normalize Dante's ability to follow up his air arbiter with combos, right? And open up the different types of combos that he can do after an air arbiter catch as well. And that's what Dante should really be about. It should be about variety, and it should be consistent across the board. No,
I totally agree with that. Variety, like having a character is basically, we'll get into this in the next section, right? Like literally very soon, about a character with as many options as Dante. It seems kind of disappointing that for a character with so many options, that his main option is only one option.
Yes.
I do like the sound of that, but I don't know if that's something that can be implemented due to I don't know how much actual work into the actual mechanics of the games Sony Santa Monica can do. But if they do something like that, I would have no issues with seeing Dante being able to do work on the fly off of hits like that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with it as well.
Another of his circle moves, his counter. Is there anything you would do to his counter?
Oh my God! Let's talk about the counter.
Yay!
This is one of the big things for me with Dante. So earlier I mentioned that Dante needs to sort of work on his approach and his ability to get in on opponents. Right, that's sort of his downside. If an opponent is an air camper, Dante has a lot of difficulty dealing with that matchup. Currently, if I was in the air and I countered, whether I hit you or I missed, I have nowhere to go but down. Right, it stone falls me again. Right? This is why I say Dante is a very linear character.
The one thing about the counters is that counter reaction is for every character with a counter. If they do a counter in the air, they all stonefall.
Except for Sly.
Well, Sly
can teleport after his, right?
Yeah, but that's a Sly thing, though.
Well, it's a Sly thing.
Yeah, since his thing is a command, hence why it's like Sly is a special snowflake in that sense because his quote unquote role is a command rather than an actual motion. It changes the physics for that. Right. So that's kind of one of those things that, even if it's silly, but there's nothing you can do about it, dude. That's a mechanical thing.
That's one of the things that I think would really help Dante, though, if we were to make it so that on hit only, if I were to correctly counter, let's say, an evil Cole who's spamming his grenades, right, and I correctly counter one of his attacks, I should be able to jump cancel that counter or cancel it into an angel dash or a gun or, just some other attack so that I can keep the pressure up and have some way to get through that wall of projectiles. Because if you look at a Dante player in a free-for-all or in a 2 versus 2, once there are people who like to spend time in the air and who throw a lot of projectiles, he really has no option when it comes to sort of getting in on people. The other thing that I'd like to see sort of normalized among all characters is the reaction that happens when you counter a character in the air. Let's say I'm in the air and you're on the ground, right? And I'm coming down and you're trying to hit my landing lag and I hit a counter and I catch you while I'm in the air, right? Currently, Dante's counter is more likely to miss, right? And it will whiff. And then, there's a huge recovery, and I can be punished by a raw super to my face for a good read, which makes no sense. So if they could sort of increase the hitbox so that it's at a 45-degree angle below him, to whatever direction he's facing, so that counter actually connects, that would make sense, right? Also, if I were to counter you and you're on the ground, you get ejected and you get sent away. But, if we're talking about, let's say, Raiden, for example, and he counters you while you're on the ground, you get a butt drop, and he gets a free combo or confirm. So I'd like to see that mechanic kind of normalized throughout the entire cast, anybody who has a counter, because I think it's a serious limitation, and it doesn't allow, with the fact that, Dante just kind of stone falls from a lot of his attacks in the air, it doesn't give me a lot of options to sort of deal with characters when I'm trying to approach from air to ground. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that. The one thing about the counter, though, in midair, how I feel, though, however, I agree with the hitbox thing, but, I don't know, I think changing the properties with the opponents in the air and on the ground and trying to normalize that might be kind of iffy, if that makes sense. Because having a 45-degree butt stun from the air sounds kind of strong, if that makes sense.
No. If I had my way, to be honest with you, I would make every character who counters someone on the ground from the air eject, right? So all it does is it kind of makes sure that your landing is safe, whereas if you read them incorrectly, you get punished because the counter has a long recovery, by the time you actually hit the ground.
Right.
So that's what I would like to see. I would prefer that everybody just kind of ejects. It just hits them away. It doesn't butt drop them, right? That's just sort of my perspective, though. I think that would bring a lot of balance to the melee characters.
For the counter, essentially, it would be for Ariel to improve the hitbox and to basically normalize it along with the other counters in the game. Okay.
Yes, and the ability to jump cancel on hit. Well, not jump cancel, but, attack cancel or jump cancel. Even if you were to give that property to other characters as well, it would open up the sort of combo ability of melee characters, which would be a good thing.
Right. Okay. His other circle move, the Angel Dash. Anything you would do to this?
Yes, actually. So after patch 1.10, where they gave Dante the ability to sort of turn around during his attacks, he also got the ability to what is called plinking an attack, right? So what that entails is, you hit the square button or the neutral square button, and then you choose the direction immediately after that you want Dante to be facing. And that would make him sort of turn around instead of being committed to, the direction that he's facing. So what you can do with that is you can Angel Dash through an opponent, right?
Right.
And plink his attack so that you can actually attack the opposite direction that you Angel Dashed, right? So this makes Dante a very strong cross-up character, and I'd like to see that transition to all of his square attacks when in the air. So if, let's say, I Angel Dash in the air over your head, I would like to be able to turn around and, use one of my square attacks backwards towards you, because currently, as it stands, if I Angel Dash towards you, I only have two options, or three options. I let it run through the entire distance and I fall, I counter to stop my Angel Dash sooner, or I use an attack, right? And all of those are heavily commit moves, right? And for a character like Dante, who has difficulty as it is getting in on people, I'd like to see him have more variety in terms of how he can approach his opponents, so that his meta evolves away from just, being safe and throwing arbiters at somebody to, really trying to get inside of your opponent's head and play that, guessing game and that mix-up game with them. So, I'd like to be able to gun cancel, fly over your head, and turn around and catch you, with a forward circle into a butt drop if you decided that you were going to just sit there on the floor. You understand what I'm saying?
The one thing I feel like with adding in this additional thing, since it would open up the window for so much in terms of offense, I'd feel like maybe shortening the distance of the Angel Dash a bit, so that it's not just a huge window of opportunity. I feel like maybe that might be a good evener out to this, because having I understand having that many options is great, but imagine for for characters who maybe his mobility is not as overall is excellent. Just imagine what sort of nightmare it would be for them if they have to guess every single every additional frame he moves forward could be one of three things. And I understand it is a guessing game, yes, but having a big distance of like where anything can happen is much different as opposed to, okay, he has a slightly smaller range for him to do this, so that's slightly more breathing room for the defensive player.
You know what, Domino? If that were the price that I'd have to pay to be able to turn around and sort of attack in the opposite direction with my Angel Dash, I would gladly pay it. I would gladly pay it. You know, I wouldn't mind cutting off even, let's say, an entire square from his Angel Dash. You know, like the
PM1 square. Yes.
Yeah, the PM1 squares. I wouldn't mind cutting off an entire square. You know, I mean, that's dramatically going to reduce his punish game, and like he's not going to be as much of a threat from, you know, such a far distance as before. But I mean, that just means that Dante players have to work harder to get in, and once you get in, you get the reward of being able to sort of mix up your opponent and have potential, you know, points of entry.
Right.
As you say, right? So yes, I think that would be an excellent way to sort of balance that mechanism out. I'm down for that.
So basically, a kind of a TLDR would be, give Dante the ability to turn around mid-Angel Dash, to turn his back mid-Angel Dash if he chooses to, but if the price needs be to shorten Angel Dash, it's something worth doing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. Any other of his circle moves that you believe like should be, you know, might require a tweak?
Maybe his up circle.
Yeah, aside from, you know, the only issue with up circle is depending on the time that you get hit by the up circle, you might be ejected differently depending on, you know, where you're hit and your hitbox currently. I'd like to see more of a standardization in the eject properties of the up circle. Because for some combos to work, you have to kind of Angel Dash towards somebody and then face the opposite direction and up circle them and hit them with the back end instead of the front end because they react differently and it sends them up at different heights, right? So, you know, if they could standardize that, it would really sort of help, you know, Dante players, especially ones who aren't as, you know, combo savvy as, say, you know, some of the people who make, you know, those incredible videos on YouTube. So
right.
I think that would be a good option as well. Just standardize the eject of it.
Going off the mention of empty cancel, let's go into the empty cancel itself as a mechanic.
Yes.
Is there anything you would do to the empty cancel?
I would get rid of it.
Really?
You know, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean... I mean, currently Dante has 3 different ways that he can execute what's called an empty cancel. The empty bold cancel that was first introduced by Project Soul. I think that follows the actual mechanics of Dante's playstyle. So I'll explain the two primary ones that players use, okay? There's the classic empty cancel where what a Dante player would do is during your crumple he'll press up triangle and then he'll do an Angel Dash backwards and press circle at the same time. And for some reason the game registers this, if he does it quickly enough, as just kind of like, you know, up triangle or guns going up, and then everything gets cancelled and he drops again and he resets his stance in front of you, right? To me, I feel like that is more of a glitch than, you know, clever usage of Dante's mechanics, per se. You understand what I'm saying?
I see.
Right? So I think that needs to go. And the way that they can get rid of that is after Dante uses up triangle as an input, you know, increase the amount of time that it takes before he can execute an Angel Dash, right? Or a forward circle. Similar to what they did with the counter, because initially they were trying to sort of, you know, get rid of it. They increase the number of frames that Dante can counter on, or the number of frames it takes for Dante to counter after he inputs, you know, any of his gun attacks. Right. But that didn't get rid of it. Players are still doing it. It's still, you know, up triangle and they hit back circle and then circle again. And it's such a grotesque way of doing something like an empty cancel, which really requires quite a bit of finesse, right? So the other way that you can do the empty cancel, and this is sort of where Dante's real strength comes in. The input is up, back, triangle, right? And Dante has to turn around, right, and start going up, facing the other direction. And then you can cancel that into a forward circle toward your enemy, right? Once you do that, you can then cancel that again with a square attack. Now, if you do this close enough to the ground, right, the square attack isn't actually going to fully register, right, because he's so close to the ground, and Dante will just land. So that's how he resets his stance. But this also opens up the opportunity for you to Angel Dash through your opponent, right, and use down-back circle, so like an air arbiter, right, towards the ground, and sort of cross them up and face them while you're behind your opponent. So That, in my opinion, it requires more finesse. The inputs make sense to his character design, being able to cancel one attack into another. That actually makes sense because you're committed to the direction that you angel dash.
Right.
So I would like to keep that type of empty cancel because then players would actually start utilizing his mechanics. A beautiful thing with it is, if you have somebody in a crumple animation and somebody's coming to punish you from behind, you can, empty cancel, angel dash through them, turn around, and try and catch that person by surprise. And if Dante players, started evolving into utilizing his full tool set like that, then, Dante would be a very fun character to play with. High reward, however, you have to practice a lot and have very good reads in order to execute at that level.
Just curious, do you think it has anything like the difference between the empty cam? Do you think it's something that Sony Santa Monica might actually have to tweak specific other moves for him to remove it?
You mean the general empty cancel?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no way that, because the way that the input goes, it's kind of like a glitch, really. Because you input up triangle and then back circle. So really and truly, that should at the very least make you turn around. But you don't, for some odd reason, because you cancel that animation with circle before Dante can actually, execute the turnaround. So, yeah, I think they would have to tweak another move and sort of the way that the moves interact with one another in order to get rid of it. I can't think of any other way to deal with that, really.
Okay. So, essentially, remove the more general... Alright, so kind of like a TLDR is remove his more commonly used empty cancel to emphasize the other empty cancel, which requires higher execution for the same reward. Correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so kind of more of a you really practice this. This is your reward for being able to do something so consistently. It's these very high AP gaining combos. Okay, so that was the empty cancel, and going off of that, just curious, did you feel like his throws need any work, or they are fine for how they are for the most part?
I think his throws are okay. I think they're fine. There are a few characters with some wonky hitboxes, but that's something that we've been dealing with since beta, post beta when Dante was out. So it's not something that needs changing.
Okay, going from that, let's go into his supers. What tweaks do you have for his level 1? His level 1, for those who aren't maybe not that familiar with Dante, his level 1 is most commonly used alongside his Touch of Death combo.
I think his Touch of Death needs to be removed. The only way to do that would be to increase his level 1 super requirement back to 150. That would prevent him from being able to, whiff that one attack and, still get that Touch of Death from 0 AP, which I think is a little ridiculous.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else you would do to this move, or aside from the Touch of Death, do you feel like for the most part what it does and how it acts, especially for a level 1, is very appropriate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a level 1. It's very difficult to land raw. He has to have, a lengthy setup in order to actually land that level 1. So in a free-for-all or 2 versus 2 situation, if you do catch somebody in an empty cancel loop and kill them, they deserve it. Especially all the other players on the map. They deserve, you to get those 2 points because, it's very easy to just kind of interrupt this process. It's a lengthy process if you think about it. So the way that it is right now, it's absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about his level 1 except increasing the AP cost. So in a 1 versus 1 situation, he cannot Touch of Death somebody from 0 AP to, a kill.
Okay. Alright, so going off of that, let's go into his level 2. Anything you would do with his level 2?
I was kind of on the fence about this one as to whether or not, you should increase the actual activation time of it. Because right now it's a move that's highly telegraphed. He shouts out, and then, time stops, and people have time to, roll, etc. It's not one of those things you could catch somebody off guard with too easily. They have to be committed to something or in the process of, stone falling for it to actually land. But to be honest, if he were to get the buffs and the nerfs that I discussed, I think that his level 2 would be in a good place.
Okay, but basically for the most part, his level 2, if used raw, is more of a quote-unquote counter. So if you see them commit to a move, you just pop the level 2 and you get the kill?
Exactly.
Okay, and do you feel its AP, its AP cost is fine, or if that requires tweaking?
Nope, everything is fine with that.
Alrighty, last super, obviously, anything about his level 3?
Dante's level 3 is great. honestly, even in a 1 versus 1 situation, you're pretty much guaranteed, 2 kills. If you're in a free-for-all, that should be 6 easy kills unless it's a very large map. At which time, that's sort of tough luck, right? That's luck of the draw.
Yep.
So his super's in a very good place right now. Dante didn't really need a lot of work. He just needed some help getting in. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll make it to our last segment.
So, are there any glitches that you would like to talk about, Dante? Any that you would address that are really bad?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm not sure if, it's netcode, but, well, it is netcode. I'm not sure. It is netcode, but sometimes, Zero Arbiter wouldn't, destroy certain player traps and mines. The other thing that he sort of has to deal with is when he does, his air forward square, the scythe attack that butt drops you after an angel dash after he uses his guns. When it comes to Dante's air forward square after a gun cancelled angel dash, it's the scythe attack that swoops down below him and can butt drop an opponent. It actually has a hitbox on it, meaning that if you're using an attack like Drake's run and gun or Isaac's plasma cutter, I'm gonna get pulled down into your attack, even though I had a proper read and a proper approach, right? So I'd like to see that hitbox go away. I think that might be a glitch, as that doesn't make any sense for a weapon to have a player hitbox. The other thing that's really a crippling problem to Dante is that against certain characters, when their back is to a wall, even though, his Angel Dash has the property of going through opponents, he can't actually Angel Dash behind them. Or even, empty cancel and cross them up behind them. Or if he were to, fall directly against the wall, instead of falling behind said character, he would be pushed out in front of them. So what happens a lot is online, because of the netcode, let's say I get you into an empty cancel loop, right? And I do another cancel and I hit my level 1. You would crumple through me and my level 1 would end up going behind you, right? I'm not sure if you've ever seen that online, but it's a serious problem which led players to have to, out of necessity, having to cross up opponents and then do another empty cancel loop before confirming the level 1, which sometimes can cause a player to burst and then you lose an opportunity to win a match. So I would like to see that standardized. Like the characters that he cannot cross up, let's say, well, another way, the characters he cannot cross up after a crumple would be Parappa, Fat Princess, Evil Cole, Big Daddy, and Dante, right? He also can't cross up Ratchet, Jack.
If you're but here's the thing: if your other empty cancel would be more implemented, would this actually still be an issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm listing the characters because instead of them going through and doing all the testing, I've already made a list of all the characters that need to have their sort of wall. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the hitbox with the wall, like the way that they stand behind the wall. It's the strangest thing. You can't get behind them. So, take for example an Evil Cole who drops an oil spike and he's standing up against the wall, or a Sackboy.
Right.
I have no way to get behind that character, right, to force them out of their camping spot. And sometimes when I Angel Dash towards them and use my neutral square to attack, my first attack will go through them, because of their current position against the wall, and so I end up whiffing an attack, and I can end up being punished, or I can end up completely whiffing because they roll, and then I get punished for getting in on an opponent. So it's something that really needs to be fixed.
Right. Okay. I mean, like you said, this might just be this might just be the mechanics that the game that Superbot made and overall just kind of stuck with, since the wall itself is known to have several issues. Like, there are other characters who also have wall-related glitches, so maybe the walls themselves are glitchy. Who knows?
Right.
I honestly wouldn't put it past this game.
Oh, you. Okay, so, yeah, that's...
And the last glitch I would say that Dante really suffers from, again, is netcode specific, but it's ghost rolling. Okay,
so Pheracus, if you can wrap up everything in a kind of bullet pointy kind of way, such as go over like the most important moves Dante needs, tweak a very general statement about the empty cancel you wish to do, or the change you wish you like to see, as well as the most important glitches, we can close this out.
Okay. So to summarize everything, in terms of nerfs on Dante, they need to remove the classical empty cancel.
Mm-hmm.
They need to increase the number of frames on his jab by 2.
Right.
His air arbiter should have more recovery as well as longer startup. When in the air, and they need to remove his touch of death by increasing his level 1 AP cost to 150 again.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that was our Dante podcast. And remember, guys, these podcasts are meant to inform you, give you guys different insight about players who have spent months on end working with these characters, finding out how they function in different scenarios, as well as, seeing them in different modes. And, this is just reflect, since these players have spent so much time with these characters that, they see how, certain moves function over,